In problem 35, we're asked to do a whole lot of things. We're asked to sketch the graph, and since the function is in this form, it's going to be a parabola. And since A is an understood positive 1, the basic shape of the graph is going to be a parabola opening up. And one of the most interesting aspects of a parabola is where its vertex is. And so its vertex is an xy coordinate. Where the y value is pretty simple. This is the y value. And the x value is the value of x that makes this quantity in the parentheses 0. And so positive 5 is what you could put in for x that would make this 0. So our vertex is 5, 2. And our line of symmetry, our axis of symmetry is this one. And if the vertex is at 5, 2, then this is the line x equals 5. So the axis of symmetry is x equals 5. The vertex is 5, 2. It opens upwards. And this does not have a maximum value because the value of the function is the heights of the points. And these points get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. So there's no maximum value, but there is a minimum value. The minimum value is 2. So to recap, the minimum value is 2. And the vertex is at 5, 2. And the axis of symmetry is x equals 5. And we still need a sketch of the graph. We go to 5, 2. And it opens upwards, and it's about normal thickness, and that's good enough for our sketching purposes. That might not be good enough for you, so let's go over, keeping in mind where our vertex is. It's 5, 2. Let's go over to Desmos, where I've put these things, and let's see how we did. Well, we've got a problem right off the bat, don't we? What is our problem? The problem is that I cleverly put in a -2, which moved this thing down. And I really didn't want a -2. So I'm going to go ahead and try to erase it using the Faco keyboard. And that's pretty mysterious to me. There we go. So that's more or less what we expected. The axis of symmetry is at x equals 5. It's a vertical line. The vertex is at 5, 2. Of course, the lowest point, the height of the lowest point on this, which is the minimum value of the function, is at y equals 2, or f of x equals 2. And so we've done a pretty good job on this problem. The vertex is probably the single most important thing to know about your parabola. So the vertex is going to have a y value of -3, that's pretty clear, and the x value is what makes this thing in the parentheses 0, so that's going to be -1. So when we're sketching this thing, we go to x equals -1, and we go to y equals -3, and that's the vertex. Since this is positive 1, our parabola is going to open upwards and kind of be normal thickness. We need an axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry will be x equals -1, because that's the line about which this thing has symmetry. And the minimum or maximum point, there is no highest point, there is no maximum height of points on this parabola, but there is a minimum, and so the minimum is -3. So this is good enough. This sketch is good enough. It shows me you know what you're doing when you're armed with these facts, but it's possible, once again, that it's not good enough for you. So it is pretty easy to come over here if you know where the vertex is, and it's pretty easy to see in Desmos what's going on, and make sure that you have the vertex at -1, -3, and you can see the line of symmetry, And if you didn't believe that it was the line of symmetry, you could type it in, of course. And I don't know why I did that. Well, that is, my keyboard is screwing up, so you could type in the line of symmetry without using the keyboard that I'm using, and it would give you a nice line here, a vertical line through the point x equals -1, y equals 0, and you could see that it's the line of symmetry. Again, the vertex is probably the most important point on the parabola, and so the vertex will have a y value of 1, and it will have an x value of -4. So when we go to sketch, we have -4 for x, 1 for y. This is the vertex. The parabola, since this is a positive value out here, the parabola is going to open upwards. 1/2 is smaller than 1, so it's going to be noticeably thicker. But I'm not taking the time on this sketch to figure out exactly where. We could put in some values and do that, but I'm not. So we have that the axis of symmetry is at x equals -4, and once again, since this parabola opens up, it's going to have a minimum value. The minimum value is the height of the lowest point on this parabola, and so its minimum value is 1. Again, if we want to look at a nicer picture of this, we can move over here and look at a nicer picture, and there it is. It's a little bit fatter than the previous pictures, and Desmos is pretty easy to use, aside from this weird keyboard that I'm trying to use as I do this lesson. So the vertex of this parabola is going to be a y value of 1, and an x value of -3. So when we go to sketch it, the x value is -3, and we have a 1 here. This is positive, so the parabola is going to open up, but 2 is bigger than 1, so it's going to be noticeably steeper. We have an axis of symmetry. Again, at x equals -3, this vertical line right here is x equals -3, and we have a minimum value of 1. Again, looking over, we can see that pretty much we were correct. Notice this skinnier purple function is definitely skinnier than the green one before it in the previous problem. The 1/2 has an effect, so let's look at all three. Now it's a little bit messy, but do you see that the skinniest one is the purple one, the blue one is next, and the green one is next? Those coefficients of A of 1, 1/2, and 2 really do affect the width of those. So having said that, we have the answer to problem 43, and we're done.